Greetings and welcome to my dear Aquarians out there. This is Ron from Tarot of the Twin Sun. Tarot of the Twin Sun is a functional division within the Order of the Twin Sun. Please take only what you will. This is a reading that regards the 11th house. It is open. And we shall look at the energy and what is going on with Saturn, particularly for the month of October 2021. And the time frame I'm using is on the 1st of October at 4:55 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. And so we begin. Now, the interesting thing is that Saturn is in retrograde and won't be going direct until much later in the year. I believe it's much later in the year. And what is being addressed essentially is a very near conjunction of Saturn and the Ascendant, okay? Meaning that your own sense of time and space might be a little bit stretched for the time being. There's difficulty in trying to define the structure that encompasses your etheric body as well as your astral body and your subtle force, your aura. And that's not a bad thing. It just creates a realm of mystery when it comes to the more gross manifestations of what you might be trying to define now. You primarily are a spearhead when it comes to either solar or lunar or ascendant placements of Aquarians, okay? There's something about this where your pioneering energy comes from mere presence, okay? Solar, lunar, or ascendant. And with this, there's an interesting gateway that occurs with Saturn in retrograde that even though it is a negative placement, it accentuates either the first or second houses of the self and one's resources, one's ability to deal with family structures or to deal with commodities, okay? And with this, there's an ability to find the structure within by completely opting out from the structure without, any structures without your presence, okay? Now, this is the quandary of independence that this axis encompasses. That is the axis of Aquarius and Leo, which is not very heavily aspected right now. People that you're bringing in are generally independent and they're not being heavily aspected right now. What is being very much addressed for the time being is the sense of self that comes through the understanding of the abstractions and the veil and how it may be lifted, or maybe there may be a way to pierce this veil. This is a motif for that has been running through the readings for this month in general. And what is the veil? The veil is essentially encompassed through Neptune and Piscean energy. It is the realm of mystery as well. It's the left-hand side of any path, any sort of way of expressing either masculine or feminine. It's more the feminine receptive side of the dichotomy of sex, okay, of gender. And with this, it activates your 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th houses, okay? And it's interesting because this is essentially, these are Kendra houses. This has to do with the addressing of karmas that are on the path of understanding oneself, okay? And on the opposite of losing oneself and addressing karmas that are outside. Now, you may be pulling in people who are affected by Mercury retrograde and they're coming into gross realizations that have to do with their own independence, the ability to understand their own methodology, to work with commerce, to work with trade, to work with friendships, and perfecting something in terms of this, okay? This has to do with ego death of another, of particular others, and this is what you may be pulling in. But they are independent in this nature. There's a lot of isolation that they have to go through, self-sacrifice, as well as curation, or trying to understand in a reflexive way their own purpose, their own way to harmonize with others. And this is coming in direct contention with your sense of self, which may be smeared for the time being. Difficulty in trying to find faith or place faith in the right dreams that may be elusive, a spiritual side or dimension of you that is trying to become fructified or crystallized in some sort of structural way. What is difficult, because therein lies the sort of quandary of this axis, okay, and that is Aquarius on the ascendant, or Aquarius on the horizon, with a Saturn in retrograde in conjunction with that horizon, yet on the opposite is Leo untouched, okay. And this axis it has to do with pioneering energy, creative innovation, and the difficulty is that Aquarius not only lives in the future, it is constantly traveling to the present through the past to negotiate the present, okay? So there's this automatic sort of duplicity, or as seen here with the two wavy lines, there's one way to live that is distorted and another way to live that is distorted, two different parts of the same whole or two different timelines, okay? And this is the mystery of Aquarius. The beauty of it right now is that the own inner world that may be projected into the outer world, how we are infusing our own individual sort of experiences, subjective in nature, yet objectified in their own encapsulation. There's an ability to sort of push forward and pioneer and explore new realms of karma that may be that may allot for different timelines of the self to manifest, okay? Meaning that there is a pioneering energy that other people are going through, that on a collective level or that on an external level that people have to explore, that is very individualized, yet it is creating collective karmas, okay? Through isolation of a post-pandemic world, essentially people come to know themselves by themselves, yet affect greater karmas that may be blocking in some way, shape, or form. There's a very active world for Aquarians when it comes to this individual untouched temple of a body that may be very much exploring in a Martian way some of the more immutable things that may come to the path of initiation, okay, that is the path of initiation and liberty through the 4th, 8th, and 12th houses. And essentially what I'm seeing here is an ability to address your own interactions, to see how the pillars of the gateway are interacting or are supporting your actions, to directly sort of place an obstacle in the exploration of others on a karmic level. And in this respect, you are sort of a reflection of what should be in terms of futurisms, in terms of ways of collective consciousness or collective human evolution. Your pioneering self in the future is coming to negotiate the current state of affairs right now for those in general. What I see here is a societal shift that is being created by this general cross and the square of the Kendra houses, that is the 1st, 4th, and 7th and 10th houses of the foundational zodiac, that has to do with the culmination of karmas that are being explored on a collective level, and has to do with a lot of ego death for people, realizations that come when Mercury goes direct about their own behaviors, and also addressing the inner world in which people are engineering on a gross level, especially yourself, some possibilities of what has been opened through the gateway of the Lion's Gate in August. And moving forward, there's an ability to essentially come up with at least 2 ways of addressing your own inner self and how this can essentially manifest what is going on collectively. And all you have to do is be yourself. That's what I'm seeing. Your 12th house is also activated according to what people the people that you draw in, how their sort of self-critical behaviors or their foibles, their mannerisms that have been unpolished in terms of producing the effective mind that they would want to. There is a humbling process here that actually points to gross changes on a systemic level that have to do with businesses and economies and commerce. That has to do with the sublimation, 12th house, and the ending of a way of doing things in terms of business or in terms of collective karmas that are tied to some form of transaction. That has to do with the pushing forward of Pluto's agenda, which is transforming in a spiritual way, sublimating anything that has to do with business, okay? And I see that you will greatly be a benefactor of this. You will find essentially a sense of wealth or a sense of self-understanding by piercing through the veil or the fog that has been occurring since Mercury has been in retrograde and all this activation of nonsense. Now, the difficulty is that any sense of self-expression may be found through others, and it is intended to be done so in a harmonic way. But Jupiter is contending this in retrograde in Aries, meaning that the explorations that Sagittarius and the foreign, outer world, or outer Akash, or outer spaces, that are being explored now are not yet being blessed by anything in terms of the quest for truth. There's a lot of ambiguity when it comes to self-representation or self-expression. There's something of you being painted as a villain in the lens of the collective. And that's nothing to fear. I think you already know that. There is a fixed tendency for Aquarians to at least live two different faces, two different lives, two different ways of self-representation, a smearing in order to, in its monstrosity, scare off those who do not deserve authenticity, essentially the liars or the bullshitters, and also to be quite flexible in jumping different timelines or having some sort of self-representation that has not yet been defined by any structural sort of grace of Saturn. And therein lies the sort of difficulty, because with the Sun and Venus conjunct in your 7th house in the energy of Libra, there is difficulty in finding harmonics with others and finding the blessing within the dream or the faith that you can place in others. So the idea here is to go inward and find the engineering in oneself in order to essentially produce the effect of this Mars in Gemini energy in the 4th house. Okay, that is essentially tending to the pillars of the gateway in the temple of your body, legs, hands and feet, left and right side of the brain. When it comes to the Nadi system, it's Ida and Pingala, the sun and the moon, and then the Shushumna that rises up outside between those two. That is the pillar of light that resides, the essence of God that resides within the spinal cord. So all of that being said, very interesting time in which your sense of self can be spiritualized in some way, shape, or form by disintegrating oneself from the noise outside in terms of the foundational systems of collapse, and to negotiate oneself and all of that. The difficulty also has to do with a very unhealthy Uranus and Taurus energy and the North Node conjunct Taurus in general. This points to difficulty in resourcefulness, wealth, difficulty in all of that. So you have to look more into the faith that is coming through powers of fortune in order to find some sort of transcendental or a link to your material resources that could manifest in some way, shape, or form when it comes to addressing your sense of self in all of this. Lastly, I will pull 3 cards, but I'm running out of time, so 1 second, please. Two, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So there's a way for you to contribute to an intuitive force that is being generated right now. This has to do with the general tension that you find with others, the angst that you find with others on a collective level to create any structures, especially the house of cards that would collapse. The idea here is to use this force by any sort of inspiration that you've had in the past to push that forward into the Six of Rods, which has to do with intuitive energy, Jupiter, as well as the ability to sort of come up with intuition, a collective intuition. I think you might be able to spearhead this by sort of looking into the past, finding any sense of what has resonated on the heart level, as well as through the solar plexus, to use that solar energy to push through the Anahata chakra and to essentially come up with a way or a voice, okay, to do the right thing. Now, when it comes to past projects or past things you've left off in the past, there's an ability to revisit this and to essentially use Jupiter's energy to essentially become the herald or the harbinger of some sort of great message. Okay, this has to do with reanimation of old projects that have been in a lot of tension. In the month of October, you're going to be able to infuse these with a sense of inspiration on top of duress, on top of a difficult placement of Gemini and Mars energy, or potentially Uranus in Taurus in retrograde. And this will bring forward, it will herald some sort of voice that comes and activates the 3rd and 9th houses for you, which will bring forward a truth or a philosophy within some sort of past project or currently a state of affairs of chaos that can create a sense of order. Okay, and that is the best I can do for this month. I do wish you well, my dear Aquarians. Much love and respect. Please wish me well on my move. I am relocating, and I'll see you in the near future. Bye bye.